Joe Manchin. The name alone evokes images of West Virginia coal mines, folksy charm, and a stubborn streak wider than the Ohio River. He's a Democrat, yes, but one cut from a different cloth. For years, he's been a thorn in the side of his own party, a recalcitrant voice in an increasingly polarized Senate. From gun control to climate change, Manchin has often charted his own course, much to the chagrin of his Democratic colleagues. Manchin's brand of politics is a throwback to a bygone era, a time when bipartisanship wasn't a dirty word, and compromise wasn't tantamount to surrender. He's a Democrat in a state that's increasingly red, a man who understands the concerns of working-class Americans who feel left behind by the coastal elites. He's a politician who values his independence above all else, a maverick who's not afraid to buck his party when he believes it's in the best interests of his constituents. But Manchin's independent streak has often put him at odds with the Democratic establishment. He's been a vocal critic of President Biden's Build Back Better agenda, arguing that its ambitious social spending programs would exacerbate inflation and harm the very people they're intended to help. He's also been a staunch defender of the filibuster, a procedural rule that requires 60 votes to pass most legislation in the Senate. Manchin's stance on the filibuster has drawn the ire of progressives, who view it as an archaic relic that allows a minority of senators to block the will of the majority. They argue that the filibuster has been used to stymie progress on issues like voting rights and climate change, and that it's time to abolish it. But Manchin has remained steadfast in his defense of the filibuster, arguing that it's essential for protecting minority rights and ensuring that legislation is carefully considered before it becomes law. The tension between Manchin and his Democratic colleagues finally reached a breaking point earlier this year when he announced that he was leaving the party and registering as an independent. The news sent shockwaves through Washington, with many wondering what it meant for the balance of power in the Senate and the future of President Biden's agenda. Some Democrats expressed anger and betrayal, accusing Manchin of siding with Republicans and undermining the party's efforts to pass meaningful legislation. Others, however, saw Manchin's decision as a long time coming. They argued that he had become increasingly isolated within the Democratic caucus and that his views were no longer aligned with the party's direction. They pointed to his opposition to key Democratic priorities like abortion rights and gun control as evidence that he was no longer a true Democrat. Manchin, for his part, insisted that his decision was not about partisanship, but about principle. He argued that the two-party system had become too polarized, and that there was no longer any room for moderate voices like his. He vowed to continue working with both Democrats and Republicans to find common ground on issues like infrastructure, energy, and healthcare. But he also made it clear that he would not hesitate to stand up to either party when he believed they were wrong. Manchin's decision to become an independent has been met with mixed reactions from the public. Some have praised him for his independence and his willingness to stand up for his beliefs, even when it means going against his own party. Others have criticized him for abandoning the Democrats at a time when they need him most, arguing that his decision will only empower Republicans and make it harder to pass progressive legislation. Manchin's move has thrown the already murky waters of American politics into further turmoil. The Senate, always a delicate balance of power, now seems even more precarious. With a 51-49 split in favor of Democrats, including 3 independents who caucus with them, Manchin's vote is critical for any legislation that doesn't have Republican support. This gives him immense leverage, allowing him to shape the legislative agenda and extract concessions from both parties. But this newfound independence comes at a cost. By leaving the Democratic Party, Manchin has given up his committee assignments and his leadership position. He's no longer privy to the inner workings of the Democratic caucus, and he's lost some of his ability to influence the party's agenda from within. He's also alienated some of his former colleagues, who now view him with suspicion and distrust. However, Manchin's move also presents him with opportunities. As an independent, he's no longer beholden to the Democratic Party platform, and he's free to vote his conscience on every issue. This could allow him to build a broader coalition of support, particularly on issues where there's bipartisan agreement. He could become a bridge between the two parties, helping to forge compromise and break through the gridlock that has paralyzed Washington for far too long. Manchin's decision to become an independent is a gamble, both for him and for the country. It remains to be seen whether he'll be able to use his newfound independence to make a positive impact on American politics, or whether he'll simply become another voice in the wilderness, unable to bridge the partisan divide. Only time will tell what the ultimate consequences of his decision will be. Section 4. The power broker Manchin's undiminished influence.